Cash, and welcome back to Cash Talks Football, where we break down all the goals scored in the Premier League. And today we're doing Crystal Palace against Liverpool. And there's not really much to talk about. Well, I will break down the goal, and I'm going to start with that, showing you a bit of the problem with Palace's back 5-4. They're saying it's a 3, but they're really playing a 5. We're going to talk about that. Now, Liverpool as well, everyone wants them to be sort of a gung-ho team because that's what they were under Jurgen Klopp. And Slot seems to have them much more controlled. They don't expose themselves trying to go and get that second goal because they're already winning the game 1-0. And you can see that in the way that they approach the game. They'll go and they'll push and they'll do what they do, but they're not really trying to expose themselves and make spaces at the back by overcommitting going forward, trying to go for that second goal. If it happens, it happens. We just make sure we don't concede goals on the other end. You can see Slot's doing that, and that's kind of what he's looking at. As for Liverpool, their next, I think, 6 games have got a really big test. If you want to find out where they're going to be, the end of November is going to be the key to whether or not going to be in a title race, whether or not this is just goodwill left over from Klopp, and Slot's just kind of got a bit lucky because he's got a really talented squad and he's just got them, doing okay. The next couple of games are going to be the real big tests. Even though this was a bit of a test, I'd say last season, Crystal Palace this season have not been that force they were last season. And what a lot of people are quick to do is judge people by last year's form and not this year's. Remember, in football, you're only as good as your last game. If you play poorly then, chances are you're going to play poorly in the next game. We're all looking at you, Man United. But let's just talk about this back 5 forward little going on here. So you can see these two players and this gap of 3 Liverpool players sneaking in, right? And then what they're doing is they're having the left back, he can actually go and they can expose this space here because they've got 2 players ready to cut this space out here. You can see that from this overhead view here, right? My issue is that they've got 3 players sneaking in between 2 players, and this guy isn't even goal side. And the reason we're covering this is because the goal happens for this exact same reason here. But this is just an easier way of showing you on this aerial view. Let's just move this forward a little bit. And you can see, even though they've got defenders back, look, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've still got 3 unmarked Liverpool players inside the 18-yard box. When this cross comes over, I think this little wee chappie ends up receiving the ball here. But there's also this sort of misleading aspect when you're playing with 3 central defenders, well, technically 5 at the back because your left and right backs coming in. And you don't actually do your job properly because you assume that there's more numbers and somebody else is going to do the job. And everybody gets into that mindset as the game goes on. I think it's a really sort of bad thing to do. And you can see it here from Crystal Palace when this ball comes across. Completely and utterly unmarked inside the 18-yard box. Should have been another goal for Liverpool, but it wasn't. And that just comes down to Liverpool's really struggling in front of goal to finish off all the chances they make. It reminds me a little bit of last season where they did create a lot of chances and scored very few goals. They're doing a very similar thing now. And everyone said when they get it right, oh, they'll be brilliant. But they didn't get it right last year. It's going to be interesting under Arne Slot if they do get this right and get those finishes done. Because if they do, they could have won this game easily 3-0 and you would have gone, yeah, it was a 3-0 game. But they're not. So let's just get on to the goal. Now, you can see this left back, I think it's Kostas Tsimikas, playing this ball down the line here in the channel. 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders, and of course there's a 5th over there, which we're going to show you in a second. But these are the gaps that we're talking about. These are the gaps, the problems that you need to make sure that you squeeze if you're playing with a back 5 like this. You can't just be spaced out this much this early in the game, which they are. And not only that, not mark a player, because you can afford to mark a player and get out of shape slightly because there's so many of you in that back line. When this ball goes back through, watch, off we go. He's completely taken out of the play. So now we're just really looking at back 1, 2, 3. But also, you've got to understand that normally your back 2 would have been there and he would have been there. He's not. He's a couple of yards back because of this back 3 situation. This is why I can't stand these back 3s. It's very difficult to play. If you're going to play with a back 3, it's normally better when you're playing with like 2 centre-backs and one player is like almost like the leader, playing like a sweeper, coming in, but he's also stepping up and keeping everybody on offside, dictating the line of play. When you just play with 3 centre-backs like this, you always seem to have one who's just not quite with it. And you can see that gap there appearing, right? That gap is a little bit wider than you really want. And honestly, so is that. So when this cross comes out, we can see that this space, this is where the runner's coming in. This is where he's going right across this player here. And all this defender has to do is be quicker than the attacker, the striker, and make sure he doesn't get a touch on the ball. But he's not. So what ends up happening is just a simple tap in on the back post. And here we go. This is the simple tap in. It's coming across. All this defender's got to do is either get in front of the striker or just touch the ball. Does none of those things. And it's a toe through the keeper's legs. Just directs it back almost from where it's coming from, but not quite. Gets himself a goal. And for having that many defenders back there, they shouldn't have that much space available to them, which they did. It was just too easy. As for Crystal Palace, last season everyone thought they were going to be in a bit of a relegation fight near the end. They actually did fantastic. This year, they could be in with a relegation fight. Other than that, I'll see you next time on Cash Talks Football.